to what's happening now. So back to the slide. Less than a month after the DNI comes out and says all this stuff, we have pyramid-shaped UFOs being pushed very heavily. And I'm already 1 hour and 51 minutes in, but we're going to get through all this. It's not going to take a whole lot longer. This is a very visually rich section. So you can't get more authentic than military.com if you want to know what the military is doing. So here we go. Here's military.com. The Pentagon says that the video release of pyramid-shaped UFOs is authentic. So, unbelievable. Government officials have confirmed that recently released videos showing triangular objects flying off the coast of San Diego are real. And here it is, military.com. It says it's prompted a plethora of questions. And then down here, in a report last month, a former national intelligence official said a forthcoming government report will reveal difficult-to-explain evidence surrounding UFO sightings. So pyramid-shaped UFOs, what in the world is going on here? Is it like Egyptian? Is it like the ancient gods have returned? Is it the Goa'uld from Stargate? What's going on here? Well, I want to read this one to you in particular from Global Research, where it says leaked footage of pyramid-shaped UFOs is real. Now, what you're seeing in this picture is infrared night vision footage taken from a naval ship of the U.S. in 2019, so recently. And there is clearly this pyramid-shaped object that is blinking not only with little lights along the edges, but big lights that flash across the entire face. It clearly looks like some kind of aircraft. It's blinking like an aircraft. It does not look extraterrestrial at all. It looks like an aircraft. But let's read this article. Newly leaked video of flashing triangle-shaped objects that flew over a U.S. warship is real, the Pentagon said, after UFO investigators released the clip and several other puzzling photos online. The photos and videos were distributed by documentary filmmaker Jeremy Corbell. We love him. I haven't met him yet. I'd be happy to work with him. I think he's great. In fact, he has a movie that came out on, let's go back to the camera real quick. Jeremy Corbell has a movie on Bob Lazar that came out with the Studio 1091, which is the same studio that made both of my movies. So we're on the same team. And if you go to my website, divinecosmos.com, I wrote a huge article just about that movie and all the cool stuff that Bob Lazar had to say in the movie that was new. So I would recommend that. So I highly support George Knapp, Jeremy Corbell. Never had a problem with them. I don't know if they agree with everything that I'm doing or have done before. They might not like all the insiders that I've had, but I really, really hope that Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp both are going to watch this video. And if they haven't, then please tell them about it because they need to know this. Because Jeremy Corbell is going on news after news after news show, which is great. I'm not jealous. I really am not. But he's saying that we don't know what this is. And I'm going to show you that we do know what this is. I'm going to show you now that we do know what this is. And this may be the last time I ever get to use YouTube. Okay? But it's worth it. Okay? It's worth it. Back to the slide. The leaks of videos that they got, the videos were handed to them, include a night vision video at sea, a series of grainy infrared images, and smartphone photos captured from the cockpit of an FA-18 fighter, which had previously been posted online. And the Pentagon confirmed in a statement this week that the leaked photos and videos were, remember, it's a frickin' flying pyramid, folks, that looks like an airplane with all the blinking lights. These leaked photos and videos were captured by U.S. Navy personnel, but they wouldn't call them UFOs. Now, Susan Gao, who you're going to see in just a second here, she seems like a perfectly nice lady, and I don't have a problem with her at all. I'm really happy they're doing this, honestly. I really support everybody who's doing this and getting us this information. She said, I can confirm that the referenced photos and videos were taken by Navy personnel. She said this in a statement to the Black Vault, and so here's Susan Gao. She looks like a normal person, not some conspirator, not some ugly villain, you know, and that's what I feel. I don't think there's anything wrong with her, okay? Corbell says the video and photos were originally shared at an ONI briefing on May 1st, 2020, and then later were leaked to him. So they gave it to him last May, right as all this stuff was ramping up, and we were all locked down. He says he worked with Knapp to verify the authenticity and the context of the footage before releasing online. That's what good UFO researchers do. These are authentic photos and video from actual military encounters with UFOs generated to educate high-level intelligence officials within our military on the nature and presentation of the UFO phenomenon. So they're using these videos to tell people in the military UFOs are real. Well, those people obviously had not been briefed before that, right? And classified stuff, man, a lot of people don't know about the classified stuff. So there's plenty of people in the military that don't know what's going on. Let's be clear on that. Perhaps the most startling video is the one recorded from the deck of the USS Russell, which appears to show several unidentified flying triangles flashing, just like airplanes, in the clouds off the coast of San Diego. The brief video was shot through a night vision camera in July of 2019, Corbell says. The USS Russell observed and recorded multiple pyramid-shaped craft, and these are massive. They're like over a mile wide is the estimation. They're huge, okay? The video shows a distinctly triangle-shaped object moving through the clouds above the warship. The object joins two other fainter triangles in the sky before the video ends. Now, that I think is a misunderstanding because it looks to me as if it's a distortion off the camera lens where the one image of the triangle is actually reflected on the lens and dimmer. So that's what I think it is. But they do say that there was more than one out there when they were doing this film, and I believe that. Corbell says the object seemed to slip effortlessly into the water. That's the transmedium travel, right? Slipped effortlessly into the water. Instead of making a splash and taking damage upon impact. He adds that the Navy sent a submarine to search for wreckage, but they found nothing. And can I just say this? Can I please say this? My publisher makes me do this too. I hate the fact that we can't capitalize the word Navy anymore. I hate it. My great-great-great-grandfather's brother was John Paul Jones, who founded the Navy, okay? The original founder of the Navy is my blood relative. So, can we please go back to capitalizing Navy? Anyway, I digress. You're not allowed to do it anymore, and the publisher won't let me do it, but I would love to capitalize Navy. The third event described in the briefings involves a series of photos captured by a weapons systems officer from an F-18 in Virginia on March 4th, 2019. Notice the timing, they're around the same time. The weapons system officer snapped photos of 3 objects that afternoon in about 20 minutes, according to George Knapp, who was Corbell's collaborator. The objects were described as a sphere, an acorn, and a metallic-looking blimp in the intelligence briefing, they say. And so here are those pictures. These are some of the pictures. So the blimp thing on the left, actually, we're going to see something that looks exactly like that in just a second. The sphere in the middle just kind of looks like, I don't know what the hell that is. It might be a spherical craft with a coronal discharge around it. But interestingly, that craft is seen to fall right down into the ocean and go right into the ocean without any type of problem. It just keeps on going. And then you got your acorn one on the right. Now, again, folks, we're not talking about YouTube videos, puppies and kittens anymore. We're talking about the government disclosing this. You follow me? This is heavy stuff. This is crazy. But, back to the slide, are these really extraterrestrial? Now, I'm going to tell you that the answer is no. I'm going to tell you that these are not extraterrestrial at all, that they are made by elements of the negative elite that you would call the military-industrial complex that has essentially become a breakaway civilization, as my colleague Richard Dolan has called it, a breakaway civilization where we don't get to know anything, but they built technology and they might use it against us in Carol Rosin's fake extraterrestrial invasion. That's what I'm so concerned about. Why are they pumping up these pyramid-shaped UFOs? If you type it in to any type of Google, YouTube, whatever, thousands of links are coming up and they're all mainstream. Pyramid-shaped UFO, pyramid-shaped UFO. It's this huge push. Is that the ballet dance of fear? Do you have to start telling people something so that when you show it to them, when it starts attacking cities with a laser, this massive particle beam laser that the thing has got mounted on it, okay, that might be able to be used to start fires. Just going to put that one out there. Strong possibility that fires could be started with these little guys, and they're hidden and you don't know that they're doing it, okay? If they decloak them, and they start zapping things with lasers, and there's massive destruction. Look at what we've seen over the last year, folks. Look at the kind of big lies that we're getting told, the withheld information. the degree to which this can change our lives. So if there's any possibility that they're setting up exactly what Kale Rosin told us about, the fake alien invasion, and if at some point these videos will not be able to be made anymore because this will become one of the banned topics as well, it's entirely possible it could happen. This might be the last video I ever do on this platform, okay? But I'm not going to withhold all the good stuff just because of fear. If they're going to try this, then we need to know, and enough people are seeing this video. We have 18,000 viewers right now, so like enough people are seeing this video that it's going to happen, folks. The truth is going to get out there. If they try this now, they will not be able to, which means they'll probably change the plan, and I'll never be proven right, and they'll never use this avenue of trying to create a shock and awe, mass distraction, try to throw people off of the trail of what's really going on, which is the exposure of the negative elite. What better way than exactly what Dr. Wernher von Braun told her was going to happen on his deathbed? Okay, so I'm very, very nervous about this, actually. So please go to ascensionmysteryschool.com. Please go to the email field. Please give us your email address, because I might not have any way to contact you except to send you an email, and I want you to know where I'm going. But also, please, with credit, I want you to steal the information that I'm about to share. I want you to borrow the information, say that you got it from me. Please don't not include me, because this is a debut. What you're about to hear is a world debut, okay? But please give me credit, but I'm very clear on this. I want you to develop this information. I want you to make videos about this. I want you to spread it far and wide. I want you to drill into the sources I'm showing you, and I want you to take it to the next level, because we need to talk about this, because if everybody's focused on one thing, what does the magician do when you're looking at this hand? He reaches into his pocket, grab for something else, okay? That's what's happening right now. The pocket is the flying triangle. And what they might pull out is exactly what Dr. Kale Rosin warned us about, so we need to study this stuff. Now, the alliance, in my view, is the U.S. military, and that's why none of the Joint Chiefs of Staff have changed as we went from one administration to another. You may have noticed that. And if you go back to videos that I wouldn't dare make now, that I did just a couple months ago, as this whole thing started in January, there was a lot of very, very strange stuff going on that suggests that we are not dealing with any type of normal transition, okay? That there is executive orders underway, that all of this is it's basically a dunk tank. The military created a dunk tank, put a couple people up in the chair, and everybody's throwing stuff at them now, and the chair is going to fall down. They're going to fall in the water, and it's coming pretty soon, okay? So look at this. Back to the slide now. Are the military bases of the good guys being threatened? Well, one of the top voices out there, as an insider, who's gone public now, he has 151,000 subscribers on this particular platform I mentioned earlier that's related to the telegraph machine. He says, and this is his real verified account, I've proven that now, I've looked into it, UFO sightings have tremendously increased around our military bases. And he didn't say anything else, folks. So is it possible, and I'm starting to sound like Ancient Aliens now, is it possible that the reason why there's all this UFO activity around our military bases is that if the Alliance starts doing certain operations, that the bad guys want to hit back? That's what I think is going on. So it's all being set up and it's poised. So this war could become kinetic, and it might not be 10 days. You might be out of power for a lot longer than that. I don't know. I hope it's 3 to 10 days, but I would absolutely, without question, stored water, rice and beans, food in the freezer, canned food. You can crack open a can very easily and eat it, okay? Please, please, please have at least a month of supplies now in your house. And if you have done it before, but you've been kind of slacking off, top everything off this week. Do it soon, because this all could be about to get really freaking crazy, folks. Life on Earth could be about to get really, really crazy, because they do not want certain pieces of information to be seen by the public. And if they have any cards they can pull out of this pocket while the other one is up here, they're going to do it. All right? I've eulogized on that enough. Back to the slide. What else do we have out there that we've heard about in UFO literature that looks similar to these pyramid UFOs? Well, they look an awful lot like the infamous TR-3B. And we remember September 20th last year, they flew one in daylight. Thousands of people saw it over New Jersey. Tons of videos were taken. But now everybody just says, it's Photoshop. But wait a minute. The mainstream media has acknowledged thousands of people saw this and that the military didn't do anything about it. So it's probably one of ours, guys. Well, all the way back in 1998, Edgar Fouche revealed his whistleblower inside information that the TR-3B is a blimp. And so this is his diagram of what it looks like. And sure enough, it looks exactly like a blimp. And so you notice the date. So this is one of the earliest leaks about the TR-3B because it's 1998. And he says that it's got anti-gravity and helium in it. Okay, it uses both. So this is another Fouche diagram from 1998 where he's showing you where the gravitational generators are. And so those things on the, he says they're hydrogen, oxygen, variable vectored rocket engines, right? So apparently, you get partial lift from helium or other gases, and then partial lift from these anti-gravity engines and partial lift from rockets. Or maybe they figured out they don't need rockets now. I don't know. But anyway, what if all of this is actually a dirigible? So let's talk about dirigibles for just a second. In World War I, you may not realize this, but both the United States and the Germans used these massive flying Zeppelins. And the Zeppelins caused insane amounts of damage. They could fly, they were gigantic. So first of all, imagine this object that's just so big that if you're in a city and it's flying over the city, you can't even see the whole thing. All you see is part of the belly. That's how big these dirigibles were. And both sides were making them, and they got really enormous, thousands of feet long. You'd have guys up there with machine guns, and they're just boom, 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 shooting everybody. And what are you going to do? I mean, if you shoot at this thing, you think you're going to bring it down? No, because it can take a whole bunch of holes because there's individual cells inside. It's not like the whole thing is just a balloon. There's lots of little cells that hold air, and if you pop through one of them, they got other ones left behind. It wasn't until the Hindenburg crashed in New Jersey on an airfield in the early 1900s that this technology was kind of written off, or so we think. But the military already had the experience of using dirigibles successfully in war, and apparently there was a stealth blimp program that we're going to learn all about here in just a minute that was actually conducted. So, back to the slide now. As we look at these various pictures of TR-3Bs that people have reported from eyewitness reports, yeah, you know, you could totally imagine that this would be some kind of blimp based off of the same technology as World War I, except instead of a cylinder, why not make a delta? And all the different TR-3B images, they sure do look pretty blimpish. And one of my insiders who works in aerospace says the TR-3B is actually really lame and underwhelming and not at all an exciting craft. It's a very foolish and lame mock-up of some of the stuff that is real that we've seen that's not ours, okay? But this is ours. So, let me just ask you this question. If you could build a blimp that looks like an equilateral triangle, and we call that a TR-3B, what if you take 4 TR-3Bs and stick them together? Well, that's what Dr. Pete Peterson told me is exactly what we, the military-industrial complex, has already done. So here you see the 5 basic Platonic solids, these basic geometric forms that I talk about in all my work. And you can notice here that any one of them could be made out of a piece of cardboard. You just cut out these patterns and fold them together, and then you get the geometry, right? So you can look at the cube is a little more complicated, but the one on the top, the tetrahedron, is really simple. It's just 4 triangles connected together. And you just cut them out and maybe give them little flaps and fold them all together, and you get a tetrahedron. So here's another example of how you could do that, where you have one on the base, and then you just fold up the sides. Honestly, I want you to think about this. How difficult would it be to take 4 TR-3Bs, maybe they're sandwiched together like this, right? And then you just stick them together so you have a 4-sided object. Very symmetrical. The wind, it's going to be great for the wind, right? Because as the wind blows, it's just going to move around. You can keep it off the ground with some anti-gravity or some conventional propulsion. Maybe there isn't even anti-gravity at all. Maybe it works without any of it. You know, we don't really know. But the stealth blimp, okay, this is a big, big thing. Now, the tetrahedron blimp has been seen before it was announced by the mainstream media through the pioneering work of Jeremy Corbell and David Knapp. And in fact, in December 2018, we had a very enigmatic series of sightings in which a blimp was seen over the Pentagon by 2 different camera angles. And I didn't even know there were 2 different camera angles. I had to find it through a particular channel on that app I mentioned before. And so this is days ago now, and she posts like, I don't know, 150 things a day. So it gets buried very, very quickly. But this was about a week ago. So it says, video number 1, Tucker reacts to video of UFO confirmed by the Pentagon. Video number 2, December 18th, 2018, pyramid UFO filmed from 2 different perspectives, dismissed as computer graphics. The Pentagon knows exactly what these pyramids are. And then video number 3 is a compilation of pyramid UFOs documented over the past 10 plus years. You really think the Pentagon doesn't know what is going on, especially when it flies directly over the Pentagon? Oh, there's nothing to see here. So sure enough, I watched the videos, and they are amazing. There's one video where the guy has said that anybody can post it if they want to. He gives free license. It's really hilarious because he's filming this levitating massive tetrahedron over the U.S. Capitol, or over the Pentagon. And he's not really saying anything, and then in the middle of the video he goes, "Honey?" And that's all it's really funny. If you watch it, everybody laughs at that point. Other people have enhanced the footage and brought out the contrast to show this thing. It very much looks like a really nice, sharp, tetrahedron-shaped blimp just slowly kind of tilting in the air like this. You know, that's what it is, folks. It's not UFOs and it's not aliens. It's not. What's so fascinating is that in addition to his... Oh, and somebody tried to attack him in the comments, and he pins the comment on the top of that video. He did not add anything to this. He is not a faker. This is not computer animation. He uploaded it, and he confirms that it's real. Then we have another case on the same day, same time, where a guy's driving around the Pentagon and filming it from different angles, and they're really going nuts. Oh my God, bro, what is that thing? Is it an ancient god? I mean, it's totally Beavis and Butthead. Or, you know, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, all the way. Anyway, I watched both of the videos. I can't play videos on a live stream or I'll get taken down. But, you know, I might play them in my conference. So anyway, you'll see these if you go back to this particular channel on that particular app I mentioned. And we do need more analysis. I'd like you to make videos about combining these 2 camera angles to see that this actually was real and it was filmed by different people at the same time. So when they're talking about this thing flying over a USS naval ship, that's not the only one, okay? So here's another headline from the same thing. Alien invasion fears as mysterious object appears over the Pentagon. This again is in Washington, D.C. in 2018. Strange pyramid spotted hovering over Washington, D.C. You can kind of see it there in this image, and again it moves over time. And here's another shot from that same article where you see a different angle of the tetrahedron. I mean, it's very big and it's very scary. So let's just go with the interpretation. This is the one that I like, right? I like the interpretation, I like the interpretation that both the good guys and the bad guys have this particular ship. That there's several of them, or maybe many of them, that have been made. You take 4 TR-3Bs, you stick them together, you make a big dirigible. It's scary as hell. It looks like some alien thing. And wouldn't that be ideal to create the ultimate FF alien invasion event? Because it looks like the capstone on the top of the pyramid. It looks like the eye of Providence, the all-seeing eye. So what if you have this capstone floating in the air and a laser beam comes out of the eye and starts destroying cities? Would that not be the exact type of symbolism that these people love? And especially if they're burning up California with it already, okay? We have reason to believe that that's what's happening. So this is a heavy, heavy situation, but this thing is a massive weapon. It has massive offensive and defensive capabilities, and if they're putting it over the Pentagon, it's probably either one of 2 things. It's either a threat or it's a protection. So let's just go back to the slide now. Why might the Pentagon have wanted protection on December 18th? Well, remember, who was in power at the time? And what were they trying to accomplish? They were trying to accomplish a lot, which is now all coming to fruition. So let's just think back to December 2018 and remember news that was going on and think about, hey, was this a contentious period for the alliance? Were they feeling threatened that the DS might attack them? Absolutely. Don't forget that it was December 5th, as it says here on this day, the website, National Day of Mourning for former U.S. President George H.W. Bush as he lies in state at the Capitol Rotunda. So the eulogy was delivered by his son, and it was attended by the president's predecessors, including Obama, Clinton, and Carter. Now, if you remember the journalism that we did on this before, which I can't be too specific about, it appears that everyone there got a nasty little letter, or many people got a nasty little letter in their brochure for the funeral. Well, that's probably a subpoena. And so we're probably dealing with something sealed that we don't know about yet, and they got it at that time. Because in order to subpoena somebody, you have to know where they are. And these elites, you'll never know what address they're in. They're never going to accept a service of process. So that's a good time to do it. Well, they're going to be really pissed when that happens. So that's December 5th. And remember, this was December 18th. So now we're not even 2 weeks away. Basically, less than 2 weeks away. So then December 7th, court filings by U.S. federal prosecutors and special counsel Robert Mueller against Michael Cohen appear to implicate the president on campaign fraud and Russian dealings. So this is another escalation. That's the beginning of that whole thing, December 7th, 2018. Another one happens on the same day. Brazilian spiritual healer John of God, or João Teixeira de Faria, accused of sexual abuse by 4 women, and over 200 more come forward in the following week. This could have been what broke the whole thing apart right there, because this man was very prominent. A lot of celebrities went out there to talk to him, and now we find out that he apparently, according to these 200 women, was a serial rapist and violator. So that could be a thread that gets pulled and starts to unravel the whole sweater for the deep state. So I don't know. Anyway, here's another one. December 10th, the UK's leader cancels their vote on the Brexit bill in the face of certain defeat, because they know that if they lose control of this economy, they lose control of everything. So that's another one that they're very worried about, that could make them want to do something rash. December 19th, just one day after this UFO was seen protecting the Pentagon, protecting the president and all of his people, he announced victory over the IS and planned the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Syria. Well, this again is huge. This is the kind of thing the DS really, really doesn't want. You notice they immediately put him back in afterwards when they think they were in charge. And then last but not least, on December 22nd, we actually started the government shutdown. All this crazy stuff was going on. So the cabal could have very easily attacked during this time. That's why I think they had that thing over the Pentagon. Or maybe it was the bad guys, and maybe they put it over there to threaten the president and to say, if you effing open your mouth, if you go beyond certain levels, we're gonna hit you and we're gonna blow you up. And that might be what this was. It might have been a threat. So check this next slide out, because this is extremely disturbing, and this only came out on April 20th, so just 4/20, by the way. What a great day. From U.S. Strategic Command, posture statement preview, it says in the tweet, the spectrum of conflict today, April 20th, is neither linear nor predictable. They're saying an unpredictable war could happen out of nowhere. They just said this on April 20th, folks. This is very important. We must account for the possibility of conflict leading to quote-unquote conditions. We must account for the possibility of conflict leading to conditions which could very rapidly drive an adversary to consider nuclear use as their least, back to camera, bad option. Spontaneous, unexpected conflict in which a nuclear exchange is their least bad option. Why would U.S. Strategic Command say this, folks? What are they... you have to think a little bit, right? Well, okay, what's happening in the world right now, and who's being accused of it, and what might they do if they're found guilty? That's what they're saying. Nuclear could be the least bad option. Here's another example of this. Take a look at this. Nuke alert. Strategic Command warns Biden administration must prepare for nuclear war out of conflicts that could escalate rapidly. So this is extremely disturbing. And what it reveals again is they can't really tell you through the media because the media isn't going to tell you anything. But some really big stuff could be about to go down here. Now, there is a precedent for these blimps being used to make threats. And I direct you now back to the slide. In December 2009, the exact same pyramid blimp with the exact same appearance appeared directly over the Kremlin. That's right. Here's an article from Daily Mail. Russian internet sensation. Giant triangular UFO hovers over Red Square in Moscow. Hovering, and remember, this is December 2009. December 18th is when this article was written. So, hovering ominously over the city, this video of what appears to be a triangle-shaped UFO has left Russians baffled. Sitting motionless in the sky above the Kremlin in Moscow, clips of the unexplained object have become the most viewed videos on Russia's YouTube. The two videos, one taken at night from a car and one during the day, were both filmed by amateurs, and they are incredibly awesome, by the way, and they look exactly like the ones filmed over the Pentagon. Here's another one, UK Telegraph, UFO pyramid reported over the Kremlin. A giant pyramid that appears to be a UFO hovering over the Kremlin has caused frenzied speculation in Russia that it is an alien spacecraft. So I'm going to read you a little of this one from the photo here. The object has been compared to an Imperial cruiser in the Star Wars films, and witnesses estimated it could be up to a mile wide. Two film clips exist which appear to show the same object and footage have been repeatedly playing on Russian television news channels. And sweetheart, you mind opening up the window just so we can get some air, because it's getting really hot in here. I don't want to sweat. So the craft was said to have hovered for hours over Red Square in Russia's capital. The clips of the quote-unquote invasion have gone to the top of Russia's version of YouTube. The identity of the shape has not been confirmed. Russian reports have ruled out a UFO, but police have refused to comment. So here's another one, and this is actually from the Russians' own media. This is Pravda, okay? Huge triangular UFO spotted above Moscow's Red Square. A strange flying object was spotted in the sky above Moscow today on December 18th. Muscovites could see a large triangle-shaped object hovering above Red Square. Many people filmed the object on their cell phones and uploaded the videos on YouTube. These videos have not been lost. You can go find this, by the way. So, let's take that principle that Popular Mechanics just suggested, that this may be a big old blimp with slow propellers just kind of lazily crawling through the air. Well, somebody was actually working on that exact technology beginning in 1959, and this is where I'm probably going to lose my channel, but I'm ready. Are you guys ready? What do you see in the comments? Tell me if you're ready. Okay, so some people are getting buffering, but if you are getting buffering, we are recording it locally, and it looks like it's working fine. So we have an excellent, clean, pristine copy, and we will re-upload it. So if you're having any problems with buffering or echoing, I'm going to re-upload this, so you'll be okay, all right? So somebody says, David, please explain flying objects that look like mirrors in the daytime sky. Well, yeah, that could be a blimp, too. Black triangle slowly passed over me in Flint, Michigan, 1997. Blimps wouldn't charge the air with electricity. Well, okay, but the thing is that it could be a coronal discharge, because part of this is an electrostatic anti-gravity that it's using, okay? So don't assume that it's a regular blimp. It's an augmented stealth blimp that uses artificial gravity, okay? So back to the slide now. The actual flying black triangle started out in 1959, and it was called the Arion. And it was developed by this company called JP Aerospace. Now, on this particular link that exists as of right now, it'll probably disappear very quickly. So please, please type in this link and go grab this PDF and download it and save it, although I'm basically going to read it to you and show you the entire thing. But here it is. The history of JP Aerospace and their development of the Arion flying black triangle. Here we go. Arion Corporation was founded in 1959 by Monroe Drew and John Fitzpatrick in Princeton, New Jersey, which is right near where the Hindenburg crashed in the horrible fiery crash. The firm was named in honor of Solomon Andrews' 1863 airship Arion, which was a three-hulled craft, also built in New Jersey, because that's where a lot of this blimp stuff was happening, which propelled itself without an engine. by alternately becoming positively or negatively buoyant to generate forward thrust while porpoising through the air. Andrew's second variable buoyancy propulsion airship was the single-hull Ariane 2. All this is going to make sense once you get the pictures, folks, so just hang in there. Ariane Corporation designed and built then the Ariane 3 hybrid airship. They also developed, you're going to see that in a second, they also developed and patented designs for a family of semi-buoyant and heavier-than-air lifting body aircraft collectively known as Dynair ships. The flying black triangle that everybody's seeing is a Dynair ship, and you will be blown away when you see the picture of the Dynair ship. Just wait, you're going to love this. The small Ariane 7 and Ariane 26 heavier-than-air aircraft, which you could actually fly, okay, were subscale aerodynamic demonstrators for the lifting body design patented for much larger Dynair ships. Now, just real quick to explain this, in order to get this thing to sell, they had to build a working prototype, and they actually built one in the shape of the flying triangle that did not use helium at all. And they found out that just the triangular shape alone, with the blimp, they could make a plane that actually flew with no helium. It just flew off a conventional propulsion alone. So the helium's only going to make it work better and save fuel, so it's going to last even longer, you see. The official Ariane Corporation website went offline in 2016, but it has been archived at the following link, arianecorp.com. The small sorry, that's a repeat slide. So, the Ariane 3 was a 3-hulled blimp. Going back to that, I whizzed past that way too fast. So you're going to see pictures of this momentarily, so just hang in there. You're going to love it. It's an amazing, amazing thing, and nobody talks about this. If it wasn't for that one website, this whole history would have been lost. And they probably broke some kind of security classification anyway, so I applaud them for doing this. Ariane 3 started in the early 1960s up to 1967 when they started making Dynair ships that are flying triangles. Ariane 3 was an experimental rigid hybrid airship. This is all tech geek speak, I'm sorry, but this is what they wrote. Comprised of 3 side-by-side streamlined hulls connected by airfoil-shaped truss structures that generate aerodynamic lift during forward flight. Each of the 3 rigid hulls was 83 feet long, that's huge, and 17.5 feet in maximum diameter. The complete vehicle had a maximum width of 55 feet, 16.7 meters. Each hull contained 6 helium gas cells. The helium gas cells in the outer skin of the airship were made of DuPont Tedlar, apparently a very Kevlar-like material that's puncture resistant, right? That makes sense. You don't want it to fall over while it's coming out of the... And that's what actually ended up happening. It's very sad. Details on the airship design are presented in patent number US 3180590A, pressurized airship, filed in January 1963 and granted on April 27, 1965, and you can still find it on Google Patents and other places at this link. Now, it doesn't look all that great. It's kind of, you know, I'm not too excited about this. It's 3 hulls, whatever. No, folks. Wait till you see the triangle. Hold on, okay? The triangle's going to blow your mind. To manage buoyancy without releasing helium gas or ballast, the helium temperature was controlled by a propane-fueled heating system and a series of cool air blowers. Not very exciting. On the ground with the helium cooled, the Ariane 3 airship was designed to be about 400 pounds heavy when it's filled at 85% helium capacity. So now here's this massive thing sitting in the hangar in New Jersey under the control of John Fitzpatrick. So let's zoom in on him. Look at how big that thing is compared to him in that little seat. It's huge. Okay? 2-person cockpit. Here's another cutaway drawing from Popular Science where you see the inside. And you got the propeller on the back. There they are at Mercer County Airport in Trenton, New Jersey, 1964, standing behind this massive thing. And look at how big it is compared to them. And this picture is even more amazing, where you see the guy climbing up the ladder to get inside. And look at it up close, okay? Just how massive this thing is compared to the other planes on the tarmac. Look at the plane behind it on the left. This thing is huge. It's huge. And then you see the guy again climbing up the ladder. So I mean, just it's a big, big object. But then it's going to get even more interesting, folks. Ariane 3 was constructed between 1959 and 1965 at the Mercer County Airport near Trenton, New Jersey. While preparing for its first flight, despite the Kevlar material, Ariane 3 was badly damaged while it was taxiing in 1966 as a sudden gust of wind caught it during a sharp turn. The fragile, lightweight Ariane 3 was flipped over onto its back and then got flipped back again onto its undercarriage, and it was damaged and it never flew. That's really sad, but that's what happened. So a very similar stealth blimp idea to the Ariane 3 was discussed in 1990, as you see here in this article from Los Angeles Times. New secret weapon, the stealth blimp. Aerospace, low cost, unmanned, and invisible to the radar. It is being developed under an Army contract for guerrilla surveillance. This is 1990. Again, most people thinking of stealth aircraft probably think about the B-2 stealth bomber, invisible to radar, fast and sleek, with an estimated price tag of $500 million or more. Well, not really, but that's another story. Not Carter Ward. When his thoughts turn to stealth aircraft, he thinks about something stubby, with a top speed of 28 miles per hour and only costs $195,000, the stealth blimp. For 3 years, Ward, a civilian engineer for the Navy in Port Hueneme, has been working on a 69-foot prototype of a stealth blimp, meant to be unmanned, radio-controlled, and invisible to radar, so far receiving about $700,000 in funding from the Army. And it looks just like the Ariane 3. Actually, we'll see a picture of it later. Now here's another illustration of this, a different idea from 2012, and this apparently was never even built. The one in 1990 was. But it says, check out this giant spy blimp before the Air Force kills it. And then again, they're looking at the budget, and you see the budget starts out at like, it's practically zero, and then it's hovering around 500 grand, and then it goes up to like $3.5 million, and that's when the Air Force said, no, we're not feeling it anymore. But here's the one that they did build from 1990. That's the picture of it from that article. Doesn't this look awfully strange and awfully familiar, folks? Didn't we just get disclosure from the Pentagon? Didn't they just leak these 3 pictures to Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, and didn't they say that it was a metallic blimp-shaped UFO? Well, maybe it is a frickin' blimp, right? It looks exactly like the one they actually made. And this is the picture from the 1990 article about how it could be used for telemetry, right? So the UFO that they took a picture of, again here, it's the same thing. It's the same thing, just tilted on its side with little stubs on the top and bottom, probably to hold, like, I don't know, weapons or antenna or whatever. You know, they got to add some things. But it's the same craft. And this one that they talked about in 1990 looks exactly like the Ariane 3. It's just that it's got 2 holes instead of 3. So they know what the hell they're doing. This thing didn't get canceled. This thing didn't get buried. They just didn't pay off the people in JP Aerospace. They stole it. And he knows it. We're going to hear from him in just a minute, and you're going to see where he admits that they stole it from him and developed it without his knowledge. So how do you solve this horrible problem where the thing suddenly flips upside down and crashes? Well, initial repair efforts after it crashed were redirected to reconstruct it into a new, larger, metal-clad, delta-shaped configuration. A delta is a triangle. It's a triangle. Wait till you see the pictures. You're going to be so blown away. I mean, this might be one of the most exciting things you've ever seen in your life. Honest to God. I'm not kidding. A larger metal-clad delta-shaped configuration known as the Ariane 3B, which was 100 feet in long and 75 feet wide. The work was discontinued as Ariane then focused on more advanced and more capable Dynair ship designs. So this Dynair ship in 1967 in a classified program, a flying dirigible, looks kind of familiar, doesn't it, folks? Whoa, yeah. I mean, this is the flying black triangle. This is a predecessor to the TR-3B. And yes, it's not just a diagram. They actually have patents and all kinds of stuff, folks. The Dynair ship freighter patent from 1967 to 1969. It was a semi-buoyant lifting body aircraft designed by Ariane for use as a civilian and military cargo transport. It's cheap. You could load it up with lots of stuff and you could move it around. Well, that never happened. They kept it classified, and they want to make it look like a scary alien invasion when they use these things to blow us up. Hopefully that never happens, but if they do, this is what they're going to use. The basic concept for the Dynair ship is addressed in U.S. Patent 3,486,719A airship filed on December 4th, 67, and granted on December 30th, 1969. So it took 2 years, but they did get it. So here are some of the pictures of this damn thing. I mean, this is a later version that's bigger. This is the Ariane 340 because it's 340 feet long. 340 feet long. Look at the little trucks down there. It's crazy. This was the earlier design, the Dynair ship, so you can see it on the cross-section scale. And notice at the top where it says figure 2, down at the bottom, there's 2 cubes in there. That's the storage area. Then you look at it on figure 3 from the side, you can see you can fit 3 18-wheeler truck bodies in that thing. It's huge. And that's just the smaller one. So you could hold an incredible amount of cargo on these. It's just that if you did it now, everybody would say, oh my God, it's a UFO. Holy crap. No, it's just a blimp, dude. It's just a blimp. The main features of the Dynair ship were: the hull is a low aspect ratio blended delta wing with vertical stabilizers that form end plates on the wings. The craft is semi-buoyant. The large delta wing contains inflated helium lifting gas cells. So now that you're looking at it, you can see all the little propellers on the back, slow-moving propellers. You can see where they got all those mounted. And then again from the side angle view here. The cargo compartment, 94, which I just talked about, and cargo rails, 96, are sealed from the helium's volume and suspended within the hull by a web of steel support cables that distribute the concentrated load of the cargo compartment over the large area of the upper shell of fuselage. This is all very technical, and I don't need you to understand all this, but I just want you to know how much work went into this. This was a serious project that millions of dollars were spent on in conventional money. Cargo was carried in containers suspended from the cargo rails. The propulsion system is mounted along the wing's trailing edge, and it's a bunch of propellers. A Dynair ship can taxi like a fixed-wing airplane. Yeah, on the ground it has landing gear and it can roll around. And it actually takes off. It will fly like an airplane without helium, as they did in this test that you're going to see. So they need to protect it from the wind. So because of its relatively lightweight for its size, care had to be taken to ensure that it's not upset by the wind. Examples of unique operating provisions described in this patent are: the landing gear was adjustable, so the ship is maintained in a nose-down altitude while it's on the ground. So the landing gear goes up and down to try to ride the wind. The landing gear was permitted to swivel freely on a vertical axis, so the wheel units act as a crosswind landing gear, permitting takeoff and landing with the aircraft's center line aligned to the wind and not the runway. That's brilliant. It's another thing that probably works very well. Swiveling wheels. Who would have thought? The aircraft may become too light for safe ground operation in windy conditions. So there you go. That's why you got to have swiveling wheels and a lot of shock absorbers in the landing gear. The ship needed to be kept partially ballasted. That means it has weight by fuel, cargo, or both, particularly if you have severe winds. So you got to make sure it's heavy enough. A Dynair ship could fly if it's pressurized by air instead of helium, because it does work as an airplane, although its ability to carry cargo is then reduced. So it does work as an airplane. And then they lay it right out here. Here's the link where you can go read this patent. So pause the screen or just type in that patent and you will find it. And you can do all this research, and I want you to make your own videos. So now we get to the big daddy. This is where it gets really crazy. The 340-foot-long Ariane 340. So it says here, number 4, this is from that PDF file. Ariane's design concept for a full-size commercial freighter based on patent 3,486,719A was the semi-buoyant Ariane 340. This Dynair ship freighter design had a length of 340 feet, a wingspan of 256 feet. It's huge. And a total lift capacity of 400,000 pounds. Wow. That's an enormous amount of cargo. It was powered by 4 5,500 horsepower Rolls-Royce Tyne turboprop engines mounted along the trailing edge of the delta-shaped aerobody. The Ariane 340 was designed to carry up to 6 intermodal containers. 6 containers, loaded from tractor truck semi-trailers, using built-in lifting and handling equipment in the cargo bay. The intermodal containers were suspended from a structural framework that distributed the cargo loads via the network of catenary cables into the upper surface of the aerobody. So there's a little picture of it. And they also say the Ariane 340 was trimmed to be aerostatically slightly heavier than air prior to takeoff. This enables the Ariane 340 to taxi, take off, and land from an airport like a conventional airplane. Guys, it's not aliens. It's not extraterrestrial. Look at how small the 18-wheeler truck is down there on the bottom left as they're loading it up compared to the size of this 340-foot-long craft. It's freaking massive. And then here's the cutaway drawing where you see how this internal cargo hold can hold actually 6 different truck containers. It's incredible. And here's actually a photograph from Technika Molodovsky, or Molodova. I forget exactly how to pronounce it. It's the Russian Technology for Youth magazine in which they profiled this invention. And then the guy's going to say later that actually they did make these, but he just, it was taken away from his company, basically. So because they didn't actually build this, or he claims that they didn't build it, in order to get them excited and prove that this would really work, what do you have to do? You can't get the big one done. You got to get a small one done first. That's called a proof of concept, right? You make it small, and then everybody's happy, and they say, okay, we believe you. And actually, we're dealing with the same kind of thing right now, but I can't talk about that just yet. I will soon, but you got to have a prototype, folks. You can't just say we're going to build something and have people give you money. It doesn't work. So number 5, the Ariane subscale dynair ship remote-controlled flying models, 1968 to mid-1970s. Ariane built a series of small gasoline engine-powered, remotely controlled, heavier-than-air flying models, little models, to confirm the basic aerodynamic characteristics of their lifting body design for the dynair ship. A series of 4-foot models were tested from spring 1968 to 1969. 4 foot long, that's not very big. 7-foot Ariane 7 flew a 14-flight test program in mid-1970 before it was destroyed on its last test flight. Then they made a piloted craft, so it's not a remote control now. 1969, 1971, and they call it the Ariane 26. The proof of concept aircraft for the dynair ship, which means that hopefully they're going to finance the dynair ship, and they did, they just didn't do it through JP Aerospace, was the piloted subscale Ariane 26, which lacked lifting gas and operated as a heavier-than aircraft throughout its test program to further validate the aerodynamics of the dynair ship. The basic design of the Ariane 26 is described in U.S. Patent 3,684,217A aircraft, filed on September 30th, 1970, granted on August 17th, 1972, just a few months before I was born. The patent abstract describes the aircraft as follows, quote, "This invention relates to aircraft and particularly to delta-shaped, that's flying triangles, lifting bodies having high sweep angles. Such lifting bodies possess favorable stall characteristics, meaning they can just hang out in the air, and they're capable of relatively high cruising speeds and relatively low landing speeds. They can be made to carry a large payload efficiently and may be operated heavier than air or with helium, either lighter than air or slightly heavier than air." So I think I just read this to you. So again, just to really emphasize the point, it lacked lifting gas and it does operate heavier than air. So this thing flies as an airplane. And we already talked about this. The patent, I read all this to you. But again, I built out slides. I apologize. So again, delta-shaped lifting aircraft. Huge triangle aircraft. That's what the patent is for. And he was pitching this to the military. And once again, you can read the patent right here. So if you look at this patent, this is the diagram of their crappy little, I'm sorry to say it's crappy, but again, they didn't have much money and they just needed to get something built, some kind of prototype so they could land the contract. So they built this weird, stubby little fat airplane that's just a little flying triangle in the shape of a balloon. She says, it's cute. Okay, yeah, it's cute. And you're going to see pictures of it because they found it in a hangar. Believe it or not, it still exists. They still have it on display in a museum. The Ariane 26's structure was composed of welded aluminum tubes, some salvaged from the wrecked Ariane 3, covered with aircraft cloth and aluminum sheet. After completion, the aircraft was transported by road to the National Aviation Facilities Experimental Center, or NAFEC, near Atlantic City to be flight tested. So here's the actual photograph of the prototype. And this was piloted. You could get inside. There it is on the ground. Here it is taxiing in 1971, taxiing test. And will it actually fly? The Ariane 26 made its first flight piloted by John Olcott at NAFEC on September 7, 1970. But it proved to not have enough power and it could not climb out of its ground effect. Uh-oh. They made a series of modifications and brief test flights with new propellers and vortex generators. What the hell that is? Interesting, huh? Vortex generators. Added to the aero body, the testing then resumed at NAFEC on March 1st, 1971. Now they got better propellers, better engines, and the aircraft was able to fly and maneuver successfully on several flights before its engine died because it had limited operating life and it ended the program. So John McPhee recounted the story of the test program in his book, The Deltoid Pumpkin Seed. And I'm going to show you that cover. So here they are, literally taking off and getting airborne, and here they are in flight. So yes, folks, right now, here on YouTube, in the last few minutes before they take me down, is the first flying black triangle officially developed and flown, and you can see it from the ground. And here's William McElwee Miller Jr. with the Ariane 26 posing in front of it. The key finding from the Ariane 26 test program, as reported by William Miller, was the aero body was an aerodynamically feasible concept and a basis existed for realistic studies of much larger aircraft. That's their finding. If you build it, it's going to work. It'll fly. Following the apparent success of the Ariane 26 project, Ariane Corporation's board voted unanimously to proceed with developing the Dynair ship for civilian and commercial purposes, and John McPhee recounted the story of the test program in his book, The Deltoid, which means triangular, Pumpkin Seed. So here is the copy of The Deltoid Pumpkin Seed by John McPhee, looking very, very early 70s. I had a lot of books in my parents' library that looked like this. Tom Swift, move over, it says on the top. The incredible, true adventure of the creation of a flying machine that makes Apollo seem easy and flying saucers look real. A beautiful book with more thrills than fiction, says Philadelphia Bulletin. $1.50. There you go. So check this out. This is so freaking cool. For 40 years, this Ariane 26 prototype was stored in a hangar. It had some dust on it, but it was in perfect shape. They covered over the engine, which was very smart, and they actually dusted it off. And it says here, December 18th, 2019, Facebook post by Free Flight Aviation stated that the Ariane 26 will be on display at the Air Victory Museum at the South Jersey Airport in Lumberton, New Jersey, which is right where the Hindenburg happened. Following are the 3 photos from that post. So you can see this is pictures of it as it was being moved to the Air Victory Museum. And here it is on display at the museum up close. And then there's a close-up detail shot on the bottom of the propeller. So this thing actually flew. How weird. And then here's a shot of somebody who made a little model of it and designed it exactly the way it looks. And sure enough, that is a flying, workable, remote-controlled, remote-piloted model. So then they made further improvements to the gigantic Dynair ship. Because remember, they already had one that was 340 feet long that they designed, and it would have worked if it had been built, and actually it was. They just didn't get to see it because it went classified. So further evolution of the large Dynair ship. The Ariane 340 was just the first of the large Dynair ship design concepts, and the designs continue to evolve, really without funding, into the 1990s. Ariane patent 3,761,041A lifting body aircraft, granted September 25th, 1973, describes improvements to the Dynair ship's flight control system to improve takeoff and landing distances and improve pitch control in flight. Patent figures 1 and 2 show alternative configurations for the control surfaces along the trailing edge of the lifting body's fuselage. Coordination among the control surfaces is described in the patent. So once again, they're linking to where you can read the patent, and it's just awesome. I mean, this thing would be utterly massive, and they did build it. They're just not telling you. Okay, this is the predecessor to the TR-3B. They took this idea, they modified it, and they stole it from JP Aerospace. That's what I think happened, folks. So in 1974, they actually proposed making one that was totally, totally massive, the size of the TR-3B, the size of the sightings that people are now getting, 1,000 foot long. So it says right here, in 1974, Ariane Corporation proposed 3 new versions of the Dynair ship, and the logistic carrier that's much larger than the 340-foot Ariane 340 with a length of 1,000 feet, gross weight of 4,200 tons, and it can hold 3,300 tons of cargo. Wow! And it can travel 150 miles an hour. Why are we not using these? Right now, if this was declassified, we could do a lot of great stuff with this and make shipping costs much, much less expensive. That is true. FedEx, all that stuff would go down in price. That's absolutely true. You could fit tons and tons of overnight mail in one of these things. So it says at the bottom here, sadly, none of the above proposed Dynair ship concepts were funded, at least not with JP Aerospace. That's the sad part. In January 1975, William McElwee Miller Jr., president of Ariane Corporation, made a presentation at NASA's Interagency Workshop on Lighter-than-Air Vehicles in which he described the design of the Dynair ship and potential applications derived from a phased development program that is outlined in the following graphic. So you got to build things in phases, right? So phase 1 is research and surveillance. Phase 2 is research with systems, economies, commerce, bulk lifter, and mass transport. And then phase 3 is remote area logistics and oceanic surveillance. So then Ariane Corporation also commissioned this work of art where Navy is now taking credit for it being not a UFO, but they got Navy written on the side. And it's a large Dynair ship patrolling in the Arctic. So these things would hang out for a really long time. They're really cheap, and they carry a tremendous amount of cargo. So they're very useful. And remember, 1975, NASA got to hear all about this. So everybody on the inside knew about this thing. Everybody knew about it. Everybody. Because it was paid for. The military was into it. The Navy was into it. Everybody knew about this. In the mid-1970s, they added jet flaps to make it more stable as it's trying to take off. And in the air, you know. In the mid-1970s, Ariane introduced the concept of jet flaps to augment the amount of aerodynamic lift generated by a Dynair ship for a given amount of power. While this concept was applicable to semi-buoyant and heavier-than-air Dynair ships, it probably had its biggest impact on the heavier-than-air Dynair ships. And by the way, folks, we're 3 hours in, and I'm almost done with these slides, okay? We're almost done. Ariane patent 4,108... I'm sorry, let me say that again. Ariane patent US 4,149,688A, lifting body aircraft for VSTOL service, filed October 1st, 1976, granted April 17th, 1979, describes the application of jet flap aerodynamic devices that augment the lift by directing the propeller's slipstream over a deflected flap along the trailing edge of the deltoid triangular hull. Small canard wings mounted forward on the fuselage tilt to direct propulsor thrust in coordination with the jet flap. So there's those little jet flaps that they added. And I wouldn't be surprised if it also helps it with takeoff. And notice also they've added propellers on the front as well as the back. Probably just, you know, better thrust, better lift. And again, you know, this is something that they built to be able to fly without being heavier than air as a regular little airplane. So this is their jet flap Dynair ship concept circa 1975. You have the tilting rotors in the back that look like the infamous X-22, the original quadcopter, which, you know, actually we might come into possession of one of those pretty soon, but that's another story. I'm not going to talk about that either. Anyway, the original thing is called the X-22. It had 4 propellers on it that you can tilt, and it's the predecessor to all these machines they're making now. It was already done in the 1960s, and it did fly. Go look up X-22, the real X-22, the original one. You'll see it. Not the other one that I like. So, as we go into the 1990s, without really much funding, JP Aerospace continued to tinker and make things that they were hoping would get financed, but nobody ever did it because they actually already had it and they just didn't tell them. Heavier-than-air Dynair ships. Versions of the Dynair ship that, like the Ariane 26, lacked lifting gas and operated as heavier-than-air aircraft at all times were proposed by Ariane. Following are 2 Ariane patents for heavier-than-air large Dynair ships, configured as radar surveillance platforms. None of them were allegedly built. And this is patent 4,896,160A, granted January 23, 1990, describing a heavier-than-air airborne surveillance platform with long endurance and high-altitude flight capability. It carries planar phased array antennas arranged to scan in a continuous pattern in all azimuthal directions from its deltoid hull. You can read the patent here. So there again, it kind of looks like your rinky-dink little aircraft, but okay, it's cool. It's still cool. Oh, this is the next one. That's the one that we see at the bottom. And that's the one where they had those radar antenna arrays that you see out the top in the middle there. The antennas that stick forward. There's 3 of them. You can see that in the middle of the craft on the bottom. And then here it is from the side with those new flaps they designed. And then here it is from the top with the 3 antennas. So this is absolutely real, folks. And it looks exactly like the flying black triangle, doesn't it? Now we're really starting to zero in. About the only thing that's wrong now is the flaps. And then they got Dynair Ship 2, the final designs by Ariane. Look at that shape. I mean, it's incredible. It's exactly what people are seeing. Somebody built it. On their archived website, Ariane presented their final concepts for an ultra-large airlifter known as the Dynair Ship 2. quote, the current U.S. military reawakening of interest in very large hybrid aircraft concepts shows the validity of Aerion's Dynair Ship 2. Using both buoyant and aerodynamic lift, Dynair Ship 2 is the newest variant of Aerion's lifting body airship concepts. Based upon a configuration of Aerion's research in the 1980s, Dynair Ship 2 is a manned or unmanned aircraft concept that will allow the transportation of very large cargo weight and volume. FedEx, folks, think about it. Save a lot of money. They keep raising the prices on us, right? Why put it in little planes when you can put it in one great big fat one? Over great distances for military and commercial, i.e. FedEx, logistics. So there it is again up close. It's gorgeous. I want to see this built. I mean, we should be using these. It would save us a fortune on overnight shipping, for one thing. So, okay. That actually shouldn't be in there, but it's another thing that I'm going to be developing later. That's in 1997 at the time of the Phoenix Lights incident. And in my next show, I'm going to talk about all the weird stuff that was going on when they did Phoenix Lights. And that was one of the most troubling ones for the deep state. So if you actually type in TR3B patent on Google, you will find US 20060145019A1 for triangular spacecraft. A spacecraft having a triangular hull with vertical electrostatic line charges on each corner that produce a horizontal electrostatic field parallel to the sides of the hull. Now, what's really cool about this is that in this patent, you actually get to see this gas-to-gas intercooler concept where you have hexagonal cells, and so some of the cells have hot air, and then they're surrounded by 6 cells, as you see in the middle on the left, that have cold air. This keeps the darn thing from overheating and catching on fire. And it also shows how you could shoot projectiles through it, and it wouldn't go down because there's lots and lots of cells. Thank you. I'll trade you. Actually, you can take a little of it. So there's an excellent website, folks, that really ties all this stuff together that I was just talking about, and then directly links it to the TR3B and the Flying Black Triangle sightings. And, you know, it's unapologetically called thestealthblimp.com. And it's been around since, I think, 2007 or 2009. And I found it very early when it came out. And I've been kind of hanging on to all this information for a long time, waiting for the right moment, which is today. So here's the original page image from archive.org as this thestealthblimp.com website went up. Here's what it says, and this is very important. I'm going to read everything here. Have you seen it? Thousands of people all over the world have seen a giant black triangle of enormous dimensions. It is not a spaceship. It is the largest stealth craft in the world. Veiled in secrecy for decades, this enigma can now finally be revealed as the stealth blimp. Where did it come from? In 1981, read this very carefully, folks. The Navy contracted Lockheed, not JP Aerospace, they got to use their own people, to develop a high-altitude surveillance platform called High Spot. NASA did feasibility studies for High Spot. Remember, they had been shown the JP Aerospace stuff in 1975. And they also did a sister program called HAP, High Altitude Platform, whatever. See NASA documents here and here. So you can click on those links and read the documents. Shortly after that, the program became classified. Whoa! In 1981 is when the Navy contracted Lockheed. Then the program became classified, which means they don't want to tell you about this, and no more press releases were issued. Then, in 1982, Lockheed proposed a mammoth quote-unquote stealth blimp. Lockheed actually called it a stealth blimp. And they said that the blimp would have the ability to project a star field on its belly so people looking up at the sky wouldn't be able to see it. That's typical camouflage, right? Aerion Corporation designed, that's what we've been just reading about. This is where I got it from, folks. Aerion Corporation designed a massive airship containing phased radar arrays for the Navy and Air Force. They patented this design located here and here. So again, very important to remember. In 1981, the Navy contracted Lockheed for High Spot, and then shortly after that, in 1982, well, shortly after 1981, the program became classified and no more press releases were issued. And then again, remember the year, 1982, Lockheed proposed a mammoth stealth blimp from Ariane's design, which means it would be a Lockheed Flying Black Triangle that has the ability to project a star field on its belly. And they patented it, and they show you the patents. So now this is one of the figures from, it's just basically one of the older NASA studies showing the feasibility, the milestones that they have to achieve, and the timeline in which they achieved it in months. So you can see this was a very complex, well-structured program. This is the HAP, one of the really early design that NASA came up with. It's really boring blimp dirigible. Obviously, Ariane's designs were much better. They had 3 of those, and then they went to the Delta. So this is the cover page from the Silent Joe 2 final report. And remember, after they did all this type of research in 1982, it all locked down and it all went classified. If you go to thestealthblimp.com today, at least as long as it stays online, this is what you're going to see as of right now. The stealth blimp, and tongue planted very firmly in cheek. Oh, it's the world's largest mystery. I love that. It's a joke, of course. Now, this is incredible, right? Because remember, 1982 is when it became classified. Lockheed took over. They stole it from JP Aerospace. They redesigned it. JP Aerospace doesn't know what the hell happened, but they took the design and they built it. And then what do? They start doing test flights that same year. So they built it pretty quick because Ariane had already designed it. So they just had to build what was already in the blueprints, right? So New Year's Eve, 1982, in the Hudson River Valley, 25 miles north of New York City, right next to New Jersey, where they have those 6 military bases, where one of them probably has a hangar and a field big enough to let this thing fly. So December 31st, 1982, hundreds of witnesses, including police officer Andy Sadoff, report citing a V-shaped object in the sky. It is enormous, at least the width of a football field, and it moves very slowly and close to the ground. It is completely silent, like a blimp, and it only gets noticed because of its very bright strobing lights that they added, A large wave of sightings occur again beginning in March 1983 with hundreds of eyewitness reports. So just because it's 40 years ago doesn't mean this isn't very, very serious and real and worth studying again, with hundreds of people saying they saw it. Hundreds. For 6 years, until 1989, the so-called Hudson Valley Boomerang is seen by more than 5,000 recorded witnesses, spanning the states of New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and even Massachusetts. So yeah, they're probably taking off from New Jersey and just cruising around, cruising up the Hudson River, landmarks, These 5,000 recorded witnesses include lawyers, engineers, housewives, mechanics, and even dozens of police officers, including the chief of the Danbury, Connecticut Police Department. Later, J. Allen Hynek and Philip J. Imbrugno and Bob Pratt write a book on the phenomenon entitled Night Siege, the Hudson Valley UFO Sightings, published in 1998 by Llewellyn. There's a huge number of books written about the Hudson Valley UFO sightings. There's tons of them. So again, please remember that the images that I'm about to show you from artist reconstructions of what these things looked like, over 5,000 people saw this flying over New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts. So here it is. They had colorful, weird lights with different colors, and so that's all stuff you could do with very easy military technology. It is a flying blimp. It's flying over the Hudson River. This is supposedly one of the real pictures of one of these prototypes, so maybe they tried building one in more of a disc shape. That appears to be what this was, or a boomerang maybe, like a crescent. This is another Hudson Valley UFO photograph that is supposedly real and suggests that it was a boomerang. This is a mock-up reconstruction, very accurately built off of an eyewitness testimony. And here's another one that, again, is directly off of an eyewitness testimony. Whoever was there only got to see one of the wings, I guess. Here's another version of the same craft that was actually designed to look like the one that Kenneth Arnold saw, the boomerang that he saw in the 1947 infamous Kenneth Arnold sightings. That was one of the types that he drew. So yeah, it would make sense they'd build one that looks exactly the same and put all these cool lights on it, scare the bejesus out of people. If the Reagan thing didn't work out, they could make an alien invasion right then, 1982-83. all the way through 1989. The whole 1980s, these things are flying all over the place. So now this is S.D. Greco, who created a diagram of all the different types of these craft that people actually witnessed. Now, what I believe was happening here is that each of these are accurate diagrams. And so you can see one of them is like a pie shape, and that's probably the one that had the lights in a circle. So they were trying out different prototypes. They were testing it over real places to fly. They wanted to see if it was stealth. They wanted to see if anybody would even notice it. And they tried different shapes, different designs, different types of things. And that's what apparently led to the TR-3B. So in 1997, we have an incredible sighting over Phoenix, the Phoenix Lights. And it was huge, all the stuff that was going on. In the number of people who saw it, in the thousands, okay? Even the governor of Arizona saw this. This illustration from the original USA Today article is a diagram of the boomerang that people saw, which again is a blimp. It says for 106 minutes on March 13th, people saw something like this V-shaped object flying over Arizona. UFOs? The only thing certain is that it still haunts them. Well, now that you know about Aryan, you can totally see this is an Aryan type of blimp. And that's, again, a reconstructed, computer-designed, artist's interpretation of what somebody said they saw. So here it is on Fox, 22 years later, people still talking about the mysterious Phoenix Lights. And there again is a piece of art that's another illustration of what people were seeing that night. So it's not a triangle, it was just a boomerang. But they built it in different ways. Just like the Hudson Valley one. They did it over Phoenix. Now, again, if they had these all throughout the 1980s and then they kind of didn't use anything, there's another one from the Phoenix Lights. And apparently they did drop flares, by the way, to conceal the aircraft. So there were flares dropped that night, but they also flew the aircraft. And the aircraft went way far away from where the flares were. It lasted for 106 minutes, which is much longer than flares could last. And apparently thousands of people saw this. Now, going back to the camera real quick here. One of the things that I saw in a documentary on the Phoenix Lights that I was not able to find fast enough to get in the show, which greatly upsets me. It was in one of the original documentaries, and there was, I believe, a Latino male who was saying that he saw the aircraft, and he specifically described that as it passed overhead, that the bottom of the surface of the thing was rippling like it was made out of fabric, but it had what looked like machine parts on it, but the machine parts were rippling with the fabric. So you see, all they need to do is have LED projectors or regular projectors on rods and poles on the bottom of the thing and project what looks like mechanical parts up onto the body of the craft. But because in this case over Phoenix they flew it so low, eyewitnesses could actually see the material of the blimp moving with all these alleged mechanical parts that aren't real, because the thing is intended to look extraterrestrial. They don't want you to figure out it's a blimp. They stole it from Aryan Corporation, they put it through Lockheed, and then they fly it over the Hudson Valley all throughout the 1980s. And then for some weird reason, why would they do it in 1997? But they did. Maybe they were threatened again, you know? That's what I would expect, and that's why I had that other slide in there. So again, the last thing I want to show you here, going back to the slide, is that the surviving person from JP Aerospace admits that his invention was stolen from him and developed, and that's what these flying objects are. And this was on a very important website called The Drive, and they have a subset of that called The War Zone. This is official military journalism. We talk giant V-shaped airships, space, and the Phoenix Lights with the founder of JP Aerospace. And it says, after years of flying exotic airships, the company plans to create massive orbital platforms and V-shaped airships that float slowly up into space. And that's February in, 2020. Yeah, so it just happened. This literally just happened. Why would they be disclosing all this now? Why would they be telling us this now? Well, there they have a hangar. I think it's in New Jersey. It's one of the old World War II hangars. We have one too, by the way, but I'm not going to tell you where it is yet. But we bought one of those. My company did. I'm very, very excited about that. So maybe we'll end up working with these guys. I'd love to build one of these. Anyway, you can see on the left the concept design, and then on the right is the actual flying prototype that they made in flight. Okay, and then the guy in the middle is the surviving founder of JP Aerospace. So doesn't that look familiar? This is their concept art for how their orbital airship would work. And it looks exactly like the Hudson Valley and the Phoenix Lights. There it is, sitting around inside the hangar, and it's a float test. 175-foot wide JP Aerospace Ascender. Now, their idea is that they could put this into suborbital space and have an orbital platform that also is made from balloons, and you could dock 6 of these on there at the same time and have a whole space station for people. That's really awesome. They call it the Dark Sky Station. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. I'm going to quote to you from the article where he actually admits that they did steal this design and that these are his designs, okay? Another major undertaking is the sheer size of the vehicles. The orbital airship needs to be 6,000 feet long in order to be buoyant enough and have enough wing area to support it at the altitude where it will conduct an orbital insertion burn at 300,000 feet. So they're talking about a massive 6,000, that's over a mile wide. That's exactly what we're talking about, folks. That's the thing. Many of the images of JP Aerospace vehicles, both in prototype and development, may look familiar, as we've just seen, to those who are aware of the incidents of alleged unidentified aircraft over the last few decades. As an aside to our interview with JP Aerospace's John Powell, we asked Powell how possible he feels it could be, based on his experience, that the U.S. Air Force or another military governmental body, Lockheed, may be operating black or off-the-books lighter-than-air craft, which might explain some of these reported sightings. So that's a good question, right? There have been numerous claims made in recent years surrounding alleged secret military airships encouraged by popular lore and high-profile incidents. After all, there is some precedent for such craft, such as the Silent Joe stealth blimps from the 1960s, or Northrop Grumman's Lemva from the past decade. Despite there being no conclusive evidence... Right. Well, now there is, because they admitted pyramid-shaped UFOs, right? But at the time, there was no conclusive evidence that such airships exist. Now the military, Pentagon, has told us they exist. They just haven't said who built them. Obviously, they did. There have been plenty of unconfirmed and anecdotal reports that point to this being the case. In the early 1980s, scores of eyewitnesses claimed to have seen massive, slow-moving, V-shaped aircraft floating silently through the night skies above the Hudson Valley in New York State, and other states, as we just saw. In the 1997 Phoenix Lights incident, thousands of witnesses throughout Arizona, Nevada, and northern Mexico reported seeing a similarly massive and silent aircraft. JP Aerospace's John Powell says that while his company has designed vehicles for the Department of Defense, some of which went on to the black world, he's admitting that, okay? They don't admit that in the PDF, but now he admits it in 2020 in this interview with The Drive. They did go on to the black world. Now, let's just stop for a second here, folks. They went on to the black world. What did they do? They made flying black triangle blimps. And he admits that they went on to the black world right here. So that's the Dynair ship design that probably became the TR-3B as Lockheed further modified it. So his company was ultimately, let's go back to reading the slide now. Although some of these vehicles designed for the Department of Defense did go on to the black world, his company was not responsible for the Phoenix Lights. Now look at this. Here I must tread a little delicately. Can you say NDA? This is screaming NDA. He signed something classified. He can't talk, so he must tread delicately. And if you don't speak English as your native language, tread means walk. So it means he's got to step very carefully. He's walking on landmines, is what he's saying. He doesn't want to blow himself up. He doesn't want to blow his security agreement, and he doesn't want to have the penalty for that, which would be probably prison, you know, in some military jail, if he's lucky. And it would be underground, by the way. He'd never come back again. We have built several airships and other vehicles for various DoD agencies. Look at that. He's admitting it. Well, they built the prototype. They engineered it, right? None of our programs were classified. However, after completion and delivery, our vehicles entered into programs of which I have no knowledge. Boom! He admitted it. He admits. So is this the alliance fighting back against them using these pyramid-shaped UFOs that they're now disclosing? Is this the alliance fighting back so that somebody like me and you could put this together and solve the riddle? Because now you got John Powell, the descendant of JP Aerospace, the current owner of the company, admitting that these programs were the programs were completed and delivered, and then they went into black projects. Flying black triangles, folks. Hudson Valley sightings, Phoenix Lights, TR-3B, and now the little dirigible blimp that's very large, but actually is kind of a boring piece of technology now that you know what it is. We were testing vehicles at the time of the Phoenix Light incident. However, I can absolutely say that JPA was not, nor was our equipment involved. There have been times where our vehicles have been sighted and confused for UFOs or other mysterious things. Boom. I have also seen images of great V-shaped objects in the sky that I can say for sure were not mine. But I could note, and he's walking through the landmines, perhaps they are the tech of a competitor. This is all speculation. Wink, 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 wink. All right. So those are all the slides. And we are done with the slides, but I want to discuss what you've just learned here, because this is extremely critical. You're probably not thinking about stealth blimps right now, other than after having watched this show. And we're going to end pretty quick, because we're going to do a global meditation, and we'll be done. So 3.5 hours. It's not bad. So anyway, if, in fact, what is happening right now is that a very, very significant series of events is about to occur that may lead to maybe thousands, maybe tens of thousands of arrests, all at the same time or relatively quickly, a massive worldwide public awakening. The initial reports, by the way, I can't even say anything, I'm sorry. But please go watch that story. Please go watch that story, because this is going to be the biggest freaking thing anybody's ever seen in their life. And just because we can't talk about it doesn't mean it isn't going to happen. You have to understand that when this comes out, it is a mortal blow. The reform to certain laws of how things are being done anyway by next year completely destroys the idea of anybody getting in unless they are fairly and justly voted in. Okay? So all of this is coming to a head. It's getting really serious. And we have never had more risk. Remember the warning from U.S. Strategic Command saying spontaneous things could happen out of nowhere, where nuclear war is the least bad option. Is there anything that could be worse than nuclear war? Is there anything? Yeah. Alien invasion. They already built it. They already used it to threaten Vladimir Putin in 2009 when he wanted to do disclosure. They already had one of them floating over the Pentagon in 2018 when they were trying to take the president down with Mueller. Okay? And they don't want him doing anything funny, because if he starts doing something funny, oops, aliens blew up the White House. Sorry. That could be what they were going to do. So he's got a gun to his head all the time. Okay? So please, if you don't understand what's really going on, open your mind and please understand. Carol Rosin referenced the original founder of NASA, Wernher von Braun. On his deathbed, he said they are going to do a fake alien invasion. Don't you think that the best way to do a fake invasion is with something completely massive in size? And if it looks like the capstone on the top of the Illuminati pyramid and it happens to shoot out a beam that sets stuff on fire, that's exactly the type of symbolism they love, folks. And now they're talking about it, and they're talking about it, and they're talking about it. I am scared to death that this is going to happen, because once this happens, if I hadn't done this video, it's going to run off the rails, and people are going to say, oh my God, it's an alien invasion, after the billions of dollars of Hollywood movies that have been spent getting us ready for that to happen. Do you get it? Do you understand what I'm really trying to tell you? Do you get it? We are on the precipice of the most fantastic breakthrough in human history, the biggest awakening, the most surprising information, declassification of anti-gravity, invisibility. They admitted that in the thing about the nitinol, the memory metal, right? Back from just February. They were saying, yes, the Pentagon admits they have multiple UFOs that have crashed, and they got the metals, and they do all this weird stuff. Well, they're not really metals, but they're composites, okay, and other types of material. So anyway, I am like not at all worried now that I actually did this video, because we got, how many people watching now? Almost 16,000 people live. You can't stop it. It's been running. It still says excellent connection. So everybody saw this, okay? And at this point, I would say there's no way they're going to be able to do it. You and I, as a community, we just undercut the entire fake alien invasion, or there's certainly plenty other ways they could do it, but they sure couldn't do it this way. And I just also want to call into doubt any alien invasion that is about to occur in light of the fact that they're promoting things that they obviously built, that they obviously own. If any type of alien invasion takes place, it's not going to be aliens, folks. They just have a lot of other craft they can use. And these things also are aircraft carriers. So a big ship like this could not only have lasers coming out of it, very high-intensity laser beams, they can spit out craft that fly around, that are not conventional looking. So it looks like an alien mothership doing an invasion. And if it creates incredible damage, they could decide who they want to damage. They could decide exactly what stuff they want to damage to try to cement in their power and their control. You follow me? So now that we've talked about this, it'll never happen. But please don't trust any alien invasion, because honestly, something of that scope and magnitude is about all they've got.